how you doing? I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good. How you doing? Damn.
Pretty good, pretty good.
My real name is Victor Mercado, and I was 16 years old when I got convicted of an aggravated unaliving offense. I ended up getting 18 years in prison.
Are you able to talk about like the case? I don't want you to like go into graphic detail or anything, but basically how you got caught up, like what led up to it and everything like that.
Um, Coca-Cola when I was 12 and a half years old, and the person that taught me the everything about the streets, who put me in the game in a rug game. Um, I ended up getting robbed by him, and after he got out of prison, and it led up to me retaliating 3 days later, and I pewed him 5 times.
Okay. Are you able to say how much you got robbed for?
1,500. Let me hold on. I think my Wi-Fi is about to work on. Hold on.
So was that the first time ever being robbed, or was that like a more than one time? Like you were just tired of it and finally like just decided to do something about it?
No, that wasn't my first time being robbed in my life. No, but when you in them streets, it's like it's like the principle at what you taught. Somebody does something wrong to you, you got to retaliate. And also, when you're young like that, you be having it all being your pride. So your feelings be hurt. You react in anger. You know.
Right, right. Um, so you said it wasn't the first time. When was the first time that you had got robbed?
Probably I would say like a year before that, I got robbed by some addicts.
And how did you handle that?
Um, I basically never seen them people ever again. So it was not like it was a no to it was a little frightening, to be robbed. I was about 15 years old at the time, robbed at pew pew point, and it had went off when the dude tried. Like we went and got into like a little tussle over it, and it went off, and then they took off running, and cops showed up and all that. So that was a little bit traumatizing. Um, Almost having results in being unalive like that.
Okay, so you feel like given the circumstances, if it would have been the right, I don't know if the word would be outcome, but you might have gone to prison earlier than you did, given the circumstances.
I wouldn't have got out of prison earlier. I was initially facing lifelong parole. Oh, you said would I have went to
Yeah,
prison
yeah, yeah, yeah,
earlier
yeah.
or gotten
Sorry,
out?
sorry, sorry. Yeah, I meant, do you think you would have went to prison earlier had the cops not shown up and everything, and had you not got into a tussle, and you would have been able to get your pew pew, and you wouldn't have had able to, like struggle with it.
Um, Not really. Like it was just like I wasn't in the wrong in the first place. I was just out there. I was walking to the store and somebody tried to rob me. It was some adults trying to rob a juvenile, but you know, but I knew it was gonna come one day. Like you never think prison's really real when you're that young. Like you're just out there. You don't think you think if you get caught, there's no consequences. Like it's a slap on the wrist and all that.
Right, right. So what was your upbringing like? Like, were you affiliated at all?
I wasn't affiliated, but in Cleveland, we hood bang. We don't gang bang, but I had a good came from a good home. Mom and dad they worked jobs. My mom worked 2 jobs, and when you're that young, you just want what you want when you want, and from school to things like that, like being in school, kids making jokes, and that's based on my upbringing. It was good. but it's just like I got involved in that street life, persuaded, manipulated by the older guys in my neighborhood, product of my environment, basically.
So would you say it was more like you were like a good kid wanting to do bad things, trying to fit in or something like that, or was
Yeah, it
it
was
something
basically,
different?
yeah, it was basically trying to fit in.
And was it all older people? Was it like adults that you were trying to fit in with, or were they all like around your same age group?
No, I was the youngest person that was from my area in that type of life. Like everybody was, I was 16. Everybody had to be at least 18 and over.
Okay, okay. So they were based. So were they like testing you, trying to get you to do dirt for them, type of thing?
Yeah, that's how it started. I would be a lookout, watching out in the neighborhood for cops for them while they took care of their business, and then, I just wasn't even conscious. I would see them conduct business, and I'd be like, there goes a lick, which means a customer, and I'd be like, there goes a lick, and they'd be like, all the licks, and you don't even be hitting them. So I just see that every day while I was at the basketball court playing basketball, and um, they were like, go get that little allowance you got. It was being funny. I was like, no, I'm cool. And they were like, we'll let you get the first serve. And I ended up doing that, and one thing led to another, and I got in the game.
How? So you said you were 16 when you caught your case, the unaliving.
Yeah, I was 16 years old. I was 18. I did 2 years in the county, so I turned 18 in the county. So I did from 16 to 18 in the county, and then I ended up pleading guilty to my case, and then went to prison.
So what was it like being like fresh, like 18 years old, going to an adult prison with like other unalivers and other, like people that essayed people and did things to children? Like, what was that like for you being so young?
Man, when you're young, it's like you still had a lot to learn in the world, and then it becomes a whole new world that you got to learn quick and adapt to. Because if you don't, your life could be in jeopardy, and it's a scary situation. No matter what anyone likes to admit, you see unalivings, you see rapings, you see assaults, all type of things going on in prison, and from the guards to the inmates. No one is safe or above, you know, getting took out basically.
So do you remember what your first day was like as soon as you got to prison?
My first day was like it is like I never forget it. You come in, you get off that bus, and you're with that bus load that got sent to prison, and you just feel like you don't belong, and no matter what you did, you just feel like you don't belong, and they take they take the clothes you come in there with, and they strip you out, and the guards basically humiliate you. You're in a room, a small room in the prison I was in, small room, like 10, 12 guys, and they strip you guys out. You got to squat and cough, open your mouth, and they make sure you ain't got no contraband like that, and they they basically give you your stuff like that, like, and then they throw you in a cell. You go to the infirmary real quick, and needless to know, it's like they throw you in a cell, like the type of time I had. They throw you in a cell for that first week by yourself, and you're just in there with nothing but your thoughts. You're wondering, like, man, this is about to be my life for 18 years, but which feels like for the rest of your life. And needless to say, is like, you know, I'm talking about intake. You have nothing, no TV, no radio, no clothes, no different clothing besides them three sets of state blues that they give you, and three pairs of underwear, boxers, and drawers, and you're just in there. And all this stuff is, the pants and stuff like that are used, shirts are used. And I remember my first day, it was a blizzard, and I looked out that window. It was probably about like 8 o'clock, but it was dark already. And I was like, I couldn't even see the barbed wire on the fence, and I'm like, my life's over. Like, it's over. Like, I couldn't even see the daylight.
So after that first week, when you were able to be out of your cell, and mingling with other inmates and stuff like that, right? Did anybody try to like test you or check you? And if so, like how did you handle that being the 18-year-old kid,
Um,
basically?
I learned real quick, man. Me and one of my neighbors almost got into it with somebody talking about because we got into some what's it called, a debate about religion, and you learn that you can get into or get took out of about anything in prison, from something from religion to just talking about a game of basketball, who's better. People feel like everyone thinks they're right, and no one likes to lose or be wrong in prison. So, that's the only time that I lightweight had an issue that was about to go somewhere, and I learned real quick. But my real issues came when I got to prison, because in Ohio you get sent to intake prison, like Lorraine Correctional is your intake, and you sit there for a couple months, and then they ship you off to your parent institution.
So what was the first prison like you were actually at for a minute? Was it like maximum or medium? I imagine it wasn't minimum at first.
It was a maximum security prison, Mansfield Correctional.
So what was the vibe like there? You were there for good for a minute. Like was it scary? Do you feel like you were to handle it? Like, what was the overall feeling that you were feeling as a 10-year-old kid, or,
Man,
or whenever you were there permanently?
Man, when I first got there, Mansfield always had a black cloud over it, and it it felt like hell. Like you seen like 1,000 crows just sitting on a barbed wire fence, and it was winter time. It was snow on the ground, and it was like this shit don't even feel real. And that's when you really like just going there. It felt completely different than the intake prison, and that shit, you just as soon as you drive through that fence on that prison bus, you just like, man, that just like give you a weird feeling in your stomach. And but that's when you start
Did you
seeing
get
guys get issues on day one.
did you get wrapped up in any politics? Like, were you like segregated with other races in the yard, or was it not like that? Like, I know here in Washington, it's really not like that, from what I hear.
Yeah, when I first got to prison, I stuck with the guys that I came in off the bus with. We were the new releases, and I wasn't segregated then. It was prison was segregated, but at that time, when I was on the streets, I kicked it with all um, African Americans, if you want to say it. But when I got to prison, I kicked it with a couple of them guys that got off the bus, and you know I didn't start hanging out with my own peoples probably till like 8 months, like Hispanics, till like 8 months later. I really was a loner for real, I really I really didn't trust people. My first second month in prison, I got jumped. Well, I got jumped my first week, I think, because they know when you get there. But I really got jumped bad my second time by the person's brother that I unalived had put $1,000 price tag on my head.
And how are you dealing with that?
You know, I fought a couple times. I fought a couple times, and then I got hurt real bad. And then the next day, the Hispanics heard about me fighting off 5 dudes, and then they came in a unit. They were like, "What's good? What's good?" And I was like, "Man, I was black, had a split on my eyebrow," and I was like, "Man, if that's all I got for the crime I committed," I said, "Never again." From that day forward, I'll never be a victim ever again. So I did what I had to do in prison to earn my respect and make sure people, knew better or even feared me.
Right. So what would you say was the scariest thing at first? Obviously, other than getting jumped in prison, like was there anything that you were genuinely afraid of throughout your prison sentence starting at 18?
When you're young and people telling the stories, I was scared to get great. They're like, man, somebody's gonna come in your room and pull out a shank and tell you do this. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say swing on them, and you're just thinking like, man, does this stuff really happen, or is it really like that? You hear everyone talking about it. Like back then, that stuff was really going on. So That was my biggest fear if that would happen, and it never happened. Um, in the prison I was at, it happened mostly to Caucasians.
Why do you think that is?
Um, Even on the videos I post on TikTok, like when I first got locked up, all the old school black dudes would prey on the younger white dudes that came to jail because there wasn't too many white dudes back then coming to prison. They threw a few in there. It's not like West Coast politics, but you know, and this was way before it was accepted like out here. Like nowadays people just basically give it up in prison, and like then them guys, it's like a thrill. They got a thrill of the better the fight. They like the resistance and all that. It was predatory behavior, and it was sad that people, you know, got hurt real bad if they did that to somebody out here in the streets. But they were doing this stuff in prison to one another.
Right. So are you saying there was no like AB where you were at since the young white guys were just basically getting like found on and punked out every day?
Yeah, there was ABs there. Back then there was a lot of ABs in there, but they're not like they were strong, but the ABs also like if if I think they looked at it like if you didn't look the part, or also if you didn't join them, they left you to the wolves. They either picked on their own kind, or left you to the woods. That's what it was.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess the survival of the fittest, right?
For sure. Everyone I knew almost was affiliated in prison. So that's why these guys try to get you before you become affiliated. Like if you were affiliated, 9 times out of 10 that didn't happen to you. So they try to get you that first week. You know what I mean? First week or two.
Right. Yeah. From what I hear, Ohio's pretty bad even still today. Like, I've talked to a few guys that were at Lucasville when the riots were happening, and I talked to a dude at Trumbull right now, and he's like, "Man, even at Trumbull, it's bad." I'm like, "I've never even heard of Trumbull," and he's like, "You heard of it now because it's pretty bad here." And he's a GANG or reformed, I should say. He claims he's reformed, and he has four unalivings under his belt, and he's always telling me stories about what's happened in that day or what's happened in the past. He's been locked up for like 20 something years, caught his first two unalivings at the age of 15, so I know it's a scary place in Ohio for sure, and it doesn't really get talked about that much.
Yeah, these guys they would love. They use different techniques. These guys would love if you had street beef. If you had street beef with somebody, or and you get beat up or jumped or robbed for your commissary, they would come in there with the tactic of acting like they got your back. Like, man, you good? This and that, dude. If you saw any type of vulnerability, like, yeah, I'm straight. If you acting like you scared, they could smell it on you, and then they'd be like, if you need any help, and then they'll be might try to go to breakfast with you and try act like they're your friend. Once you're sitting there with somebody for like a week, people are like, damn, that must be his punk, or that must be his boy, you know. And
Right.
then that's a label. Nobody's messing with you. True, or if it's true or not, now everybody's not gonna want to help you. Like they thinking that action already happened. And the guy's like, "Oh, I did what I did the damage." Now he's setting up the stage for making him his property.
And so if that happens, right, and say somebody gets paroled or moved to another prison, right, like that basically is like slim pickings for anybody else, right? Like whoever comes first and moves in on you, like you're their property, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it happened where they fought over punks, where they fought over boys or whatever. That's what they call them. Like that's dude's boy. Um, they fight over it, but the reason was because you got to think a lot of black dudes. But yeah, a lot of guys come from broken homes that are African American. They don't have the family support and all that. So if a white dude comes in prison, they still probably have their family member, looking out for them. So they look at it like if they commit this deed on this person and they make them theirs, everything that comes with that person also belongs to them. The money, the commissary, the clothing that their family members send. So it's basic like a hustle to them. Like that was a way of survival. If these guys weren't going home or they're doing 20 years, and they're like, they don't care about what people think about them. It was like, and it was respected back then. Like nobody's like, oh, that dude's this way, you know. They was respected like a high five. Like they hung out in groups. Mansfield had his own politics, like something I never even heard of.
So, without going into any graphic details, what's the craziest thing or craziest things you've ever seen since being incarcerated for your 18 years?
The craziest thing I've seen, I always tell people, um, and this happened what 3 years before I went home. Somebody that was doing time, and a lot of guys get tired of this. The guards just putting any old body in their cells. You know, some guys be having addiction problems, and you don't want to just be sitting there while that guy's just messing with that paper stuff that they be having in prison. And guys just don't want to deal with that. And they be like, "Don't put that dude in my cell." And this guy William Taylor was doing 20 years, and they try to put a short timer in the cell, like 60 days. And he's like, "Don't put that dude in my cell." And the guards told him, "Shut up," and put the dude in the cell. And the dude that had 60 days was about 6'3". William Taylor was about 5'3". So he waits for his bunkie, who's 6'3", to be sitting down at this little desk, and he wraps his arm around him, puts him in the chokehold, and he puts him to sleep. And while he's asleep, he plucks an eye, gouges dude's eyeballs out. He bangs on the cell door, and he says, "Hey, CO, CO," and he holds this dude's eyeballs up. And he says, "You want these?" He licks dude's eyeballs and flushes them down the toilet. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Wow, that's crazy. I'm taking it the dude didn't survive. Then he didn't make it out of that.
Yeah, he survived. He survived. This you can look it up. And dude, that occurrence. Just look up William Taylor Mansfield Correctional, and you'll see that article pop up.
So, did he get life for that then?
He judged because he didn't unalive him. So if you unalive somebody, you can get life. But it basically, if you do that, that's basically an assault charge. So I think the judge ended up giving him like 25 more years.
Oh wow, that's crazy. But that I guess that's an appropriate sentence for I guess taking somebody's eyes.
Yeah, you know, one thing about the law, it ain't about the nature of this crime. If this person, if this person punches you and splits you, and you survive, right? And if this person um hits you with a cup and he splits you, whatever, and it's real bad. And and say the one with the cup is a little bit more worse. It's still a felony one, and what a felony one carries is, what it says, 11 years. No matter what, it don't go by the nature of the crime. It just goes by the felony degree. You understand?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But what do you know about gladiator fights? Is that a myth in state prisons, or is that only a thing in the feds?
Where like when there's a lot of people fighting.
Well, no, like for instance, like when guards set it up, right? Like I've heard in the feds, like they set fights up and then they bet on them.
Um,
Like,
in the prisons I've been to, guards never set up fights, but they did put a hits on people. Guards did pay inmates to beat people up, whether it was giving them some form of
so would that be like this inmate disrespected me, like go and take care of this, or was it just like this guy is a child, whatever, like
sometimes they did it with the child abuser or disrespect. A lot of times it came from disrespect, like that. This CO can be straight by the book, mean as hell, don't mess with inmates. But sometimes when that person disrespect them, they willing to bend the law, break the law to get their revenge.
and how often do they get caught doing that, if ever?
I've never seen anyone get in trouble for it. I've never seen anyone get in trouble for it. Because if you look at it, where's the proof? Where's the proof that I paid you to do this? Now they got body cams, but even the body cams really don't work. But where's the proof that the inmate can snitch on me all he's want? Like, yeah, he paid me to do this to inmate. Where's the proof? It's always the CO's word against the inmates, always.
Right, right, yeah. definitely. The saying is, you can't believe a convict over a guard, no matter what.
Yeah.
So what did you do in prison to like keep busy, keep out of trouble, and basically like focus on?
I basically did to stay focused and stay busy. I started off playing cards. You know, everyone starts off playing cards. They play a game of spades, and you start off as you know. I was pretty good at spades, man, because I played it in juvie with the guards. And the guards would pick somebody that knows how to play spades before I got bonded over, and to get sent to the county, and you learn like they only want to play with the cool guys, and they give you some food just for sitting there, and that's how juvenile was. And in adults, we play spades. You know, you sit there for years on end just playing cards. Like every day you wake up, and go to breakfast, come back, let's play spades, y'all. Same four people. Sometimes somebody might say they got low man. Low man means whoever got the lowest points gets up, or teams or whatever. And it's just you play spades, and it's like years just wasted. Like you just be like, what happened to these last 2 years? Oh, I played cards every single day for 2 years.
Was there ever anything that crazy happened over cards, like somebody cheating and somebody got split open or anything like that?
Man, anything free games of anything happens over cards, card dominoes, anything. Guys get man, guys. You wouldn't believe the things people do over. You know what I mean? Like I seen complete guys, best friends over a game of cards get mad and get in straight up fights. And the fights in prison, you got to understand these guys are in the best shape that you can be in. And so the fights are can turn, you know, serious. I can't even say the word, but it don't take nothing for you to get hit real bad and and stumble and hit your head on this toilet.
Somebody just asked, what would be your number one tip for surviving in prison?
My number one tip for surviving in prison is never let your guard down. I don't care if you're in a camp cupcake. Um, Never let your guard down. You know, it's never a dull moment. Everyone's locked up there, and you never underestimate anybody. So you always stay on your guard and on your p's and q's.
What would you say is like the number one or some of the most misconceptions of prison?
Misconceptions. Um, Misconceptions. Everyone looks at everyone as locked up like they're animals. You know, like oh, you know, you see something on the news, you see this guy hit an old lady, and you're like, oh, look at this animal, and you know, so he getting sent to prison. So they think everyone in prison is like that. Animals would commit a crime like that, and guys, some guys are in there for hustling, never robbed or hurt nobody, or they just hustle. Some guys are in there for child support. Some guys are in there for you know, white collar crimes.
Somebody in the comments just asked, what's your biggest regret?
My biggest regret was committing my offense. You know, when I was young, man, I was just so brainwashed about them streets. You know, guys put that in my head, like you got to be the most gangsters, toughest about that life, that street life, and my man committed my crime. You know, because of that persona of just want to be the hardest person in the group. And when it's all boils down to, when you end up behind bars, all that stuff was for nothing because people change their lives. People, you find out people really weren't about that life, or people just turn their backs on you.
So being that you were a juvenile when you caught your case, right, and when you got to prison when you were 18, did you like mentor or gravitate towards juvenile offenders, or were you just like, I'm just going to stay in my lane and do my own thing?
Um, yeah, I really didn't. I was a juvenile offender. I didn't hang out with the regular juveniles. Like, I was like, my mentality was like, I feel like I was just different. Like, you know what I mean? Like these guys were in there for certain certain things. Like, I can't even explain it. Like, it just, but yeah, I just hung out. I always hung out, just like in the prison. I always, just like I was on the streets. I hung out with people that was like minded, like me, older people, and just people that was trying to better themselves, one shape, form, or fashion. Whether it was hustling, working out, educating themselves.
What is one thing that you still do that you did in prison? Somebody asked.
Um, One thing that I still do. Um, Sometimes I eat ramen noodles out the bag. Still, I just did that the other day.
Hmm.
Ramen noodles out the bag with a little bit of seasoning, like they're chips. And while they're dry, no water or nothing.
A friend of mine asked if you knew Ernest Otto Smith. He just passed away in February. He was a serial unaliver, and we were closing cases, but unfortunately, he passed away before we could close them all.
Damn. No, I don't know no Otto Smith, not by name. People have nicknames, or I probably recognize people by face, but
He was this. He was like a big white dude with long black hair. I think he was half white, half Native American. He was probably one of the craziest inmates you would ever come across. He sent me a video one time on JPay of him like acting like a monkey in a cage and beating on it and beating his chest, and he was real out there to say the least. Did you ever like witness? I'm sure you did witness like people being raped or like assaulted or whatever. Like if it was somebody of your own race or one of your own people, would you step in or would you just be like, "That's not my fight. I'm just gonna look the other way"?
if it was somebody in my own race, a lot of times we step in. Other people that ain't got nothing to do with our races or nothing, no, we don't step in.
What about when it came to people that were like developmentally disabled or like severely mentally ill? Like would you just look the other way or would you just be like, "Hey man, that's not cool. Like I'm gonna stick up for this dude."
We always just look the other way. Sometimes we might throw a little something like, man, that dude ain't even do nothing sometimes, but most times everyone minds their business in prison. You know, it's just how it is.
What was your last year like? Did anybody ever try to test you to make you lose good time or try to get you more charges, being that they were like jealous you were getting out or anything like that?
When a lot of people don't like to talk about their time, me, I was so excited. I talked about my time. I was on the level two, the medium security. But yeah, guys know you're trying to chill, and it ain't even just about the time. It's about trying to mess your bid up of going back to a maximum security prison, and it's just like, why do I got to do this to you? Like, and a lot of guys are like that these days, man. They're tough as hell, and then once you do what you got to do to them, they're in RB, which is the rule infraction board, and now they're a victim. Like, I don't know why he did me like that. It just, you see it all the time.
So how did you deal with that? Like people trying to test you and trying to get you to lose your good time. Like what would you do mentally, emotionally, and physically to stop yourself from reacting?
Just bingo with the money gun. Thank you, Jess. Basically, basically, you try to avoid the situation as much as possible. When guys do this or guys do that, and I even have guys, when you're been down so long, you got younger guys that's up under you, and they're like, "Let me handle that." And I'm like, "No, just chill, man. Leave that situation alone." And it's like, you got to remember, like, not many people can keep their composure. A lot of people can't keep their composure, and you got to remember, like, these guys be thinking like you're never gonna see not even 75% of these dudes again. And like, when is people gonna learn like their all their opinions? Like, oh, you're soft, man. You like that? Like, when is you gonna like realize like you're about to be back in out here in the real world, and you can't react on these emotions. Violence don't solve the answer on the streets. It only gets you another case. In prison, yes, violence solves the answer, but out here, it's the route back to prison.
So I imagine this question is when you were in prison, but somebody asked if you could spend one day on the outside, what would you do or who would you spend it with?
I could spend one day on the outside. What would I do? Like if I was in prison,
Yeah, yeah, like if you had like a good day or something like that where you got out for a day.
it would have either been my mom, or would have been my girl. Like, Of course, everybody gonna want to be with their girl, you know what I mean? But my mom, she held it down from day one, and she would have deserved it.
Right, that makes sense. I mean, the moms bring us into this world, so I guess that's the right answer. Above none, you know. Do you remember what your last week was like, let alone your last day in prison?
Yeah, my last week, it came fast, man. It was like, damn, that shit don't even feel real. Like this is my last week. You also try to stay out the way, stay out of trouble. Cause there's so much, you hang out with dudes still, like, just because you change your life don't mean, you still hang out with guys that still gotta be there, and they still, some of them, um, gang bang or affiliated or hustle. Different people do different things, and when you're in there, like my last week, it went fast, but I just basically try to meditate, just close my eyes and just think about, what I wanted to do, and basically just try to take it easy, not to overreact, because that anxiety be so bad. But my last day in prison, man, I woke up early, took a shower, was ready like an hour and a half before they even called me. On my last night, a lot of people party. I went to bed, man. I went to bed and just like a lot of people can't sleep. But I went to bed. I'm surprised I was able to sleep. But yeah, my last day was just subtle, man. We just kicked it subtle, but it wasn't it wasn't like I thought I was gonna be like how I kicked it, because one of my friends went to the hole, and he was riding to another prison, but another one went to the hole. So it was like the people I wanted to hang out with for real wasn't around. So
Hmm. Somebody asked, did you have a job while you were in prison?
yeah, I had different type of jobs. One of my favorite jobs was working in the kitchen, because when you work in the kitchen, you get to meet female staff members. That in the kitchen, a lot of people get in relationships. So a lot, well, it ain't just about the relationship, just around being around female companionship, like just being around instead of being around dudes all the time. So that was a cool job.
What was the worst job you could have in there?
Worst job, when I first got locked up, the worst job was working in the kitchen till they went privatized in the child hall. Nobody wanted, because the child hall, they're not state workers no more. They're privately owned. But the child hall was the worst job I had when I first got. They worked you like a slave in there. Like you had to do some things like sweating and working your behind off. And if you didn't go to the hole, you had to work. I mean, you had to work there for 90 days. And if you didn't work your job, you went to the hole.
What was the most amount of money you made per hour or per day in prison?
I wouldn't know per hour. I just knew I got $18 a month, like everyone else.
And that's for like every single job. No job pays less. No job
Yeah,
pays
it's every
more.
single job. Now they starting to try to give certain jobs, they call it incentives. The original pay is $18 a month, but they got incentives. Like they might give you $25 bonus now, but it's just that certain job, like the kitchen, and it requires more effort. But they just started that.
So what was the day like when you got out, and what day did you get out? I think it says November. Is it November?
September 28th.
Oh, September 28th. Okay. Yeah. What was it like the day you got out?
The day I got out was a nice day. I went to the. It rained. It rained a couple times on and off, but I went to the mall, straight from the mall. But I caught it. I got nauseous in the car from not driving in 18, being in the car in 18 years. So I got nauseous in the car, and I'm like, damn, am I getting sick on my day out? And then, but anyway, when we got to the mall, I got out the car and I felt better. I'm like, oh, it must have been the car that messed me up. But I went shopping for a couple of little things like weights and clothing items, and then I went home. Had a little cookout in my backyard with a couple old friends that I had that were cool. And I ate a T-bone steak and some shrimp on my first night. Then I just chilled with my girl for the rest of the night.
So somebody just asked me, even though you're out of prison, why are you still wearing the orange?
Oh, I always wear this orange to show people like you never judge a book by its cover. Like it says ex-prisoner, but one of my dudes just got out 2 years ago, and he was doing 46 years. And the sad part, he was innocent. He got out after 15 years. Two police officers came forward and testified that their friend, or well, not their friend, but their partner had lied on him and his co-defendant. And they got out. He's always telling me he's going to get out. And I'm like, yeah, in my head, I'm like everyone says that, but he got out after 15 years. So, everyone thinks just because you wear this color, you're guilty. The cops do get it wrong sometimes. Um, Also, I told the guards in there that I was going to make them pay by spreading the light of all the corruption that they do towards inmates. Like, inmates do things, but don't nobody just grow up one day like, oh, I want to go to prison and just rob people for honey buns or Snickers bars. It's because the food be nasty. I'm not justifying it, but the food be disgusting. And it's like, it used to be edible. But then now it's just like a business. They want you to go to commissary and buy everything. But I wear this because prison's a state of mind. And now they see me on here and it's basically to raise awareness.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's a good point of view for sure. So are you on parole or were you just straight up released?
I got up to 5 years parole.
Oh, okay, okay. Um, so somebody asked if you had the money to start a program to help others, what kind of program would you start?
If I had a program to help others, um, it would have to be a program that basically gives people the motivation to not go back to prison because they give you a trade in prison, but when you get out here, it's like you be like I want to work for this landscaping company, and they taught you how to landscape in prison. They're like, we don't hire felons. You know what I mean? So guys get discouraged. Like I put all my eggs into this basket. I put this program was a whole year program or a 2 year program, and then you can't even get a job with it. And then so guys get discouraged. But guys complain about prison all the time. About the guards, the food, the living situation. Then they get out here and it's like they forget about it. So it's something that would educate them or motivate them to open their eyes and help them. And I feel like guys need somebody that they can relate. People talk about the dangerous people, the thugs, this and that, but these are the people that are going to be the most effective because they've been through it. But they try to close the doors on these people when they get out and give them a chance to pay it forward and talk to people out there, kids, people in prison. They're like, man, people see me like, damn, he's doing good out there. Even the guards that I've been in prisons, they be like, that dude is doing it out here. And people used to doubt me and everything.
A friend of mine who's in here right now, he was wrongfully convicted for unaliving a man in a bar fight. It was self defense actually, but he was convicted. He said he wants to link up with you and do something on social media with you eventually.
Oh, he wants to do something on social media with me.
Yeah, 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 yeah. His name is Jacob Gentry. He was wrongfully convicted and he was exonerated. And I think you did what 8 or 9 years, right, Jacob? Somebody had asked, do you live near where you did in prison before? And if he did 7 years in prison, and if so, does it make it hard for you to stay on the right path?
I don't live near the prison I was at. The prison I was at is like an hour and a half away from Cleveland. Um, but yeah, and does it make it hard to stay on the right path? Um, no, I don't make it hard to stay on the right path, man. Every day I remind myself where I've been. People say move on, but you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. So that's why I talk about it. I express myself through it because as long as I remind myself every single day that you know I don't like living in the 4x4 cell with a complete stranger or eating slop or being in my cell at 5 o'clock p.m. when it's 90 degrees outside and you're feeling like you're baking in the oven in that cell, all them type of things. you know. So, you just got to use that hurt to push you on.
So how do you deal with like everyday stressors and triggers? Like, say you go to the grocery store and someone like bumps into you or whatever. Like, because in prison, obviously you can check somebody, but in real life, outside in the free world, like you can get charges for even like threatening somebody or whatever.
Yeah, I had that's one of my pet peeves. I got to think since I've been out, when someone bumps me, like that happened to me like 3 times. You know, I was at a Nike run club, and even the guy was just like, they were like, "Oh, we're having drinks here at this little place restaurant," um, and it was like you didn't have to get drinks; you could just because that's where we went after our run. It was like where we met up, and it's where the Nike Run Club was. And this guy was just like, you could just tell, and he just bumped me, and it's like his whole demeanor, and it's just like, but it's not the first time that happened out here. But it's like that irks me. But these guys just don't know no better, and it's just
Right, right. So what would your advice be to somebody that just got out of prison that has like no family, no job skills, anything like that, to make sure they don't reoffend and end up back in prison?
you don't got no family or no support or nothing. Remember that struggle you complained about. Remember that struggle, them hard times where you can be a bum under a bridge and bum a burger off of somebody, but in prison, you're forced to eat that prison slop. You know what I mean? These are good problems to have, trying to wonder, even though it's hard, even though life ain't easy. You gotta get on the grind. The same mentality these guys put into these hustles out here in these streets, um, evolve it. It's gonna be them slow days out there in the streets when you're hustling, but when you get a job, it's gonna be them slow days. You push through it.
So, in your opinion, from being incarcerated, where do you think rehabilitation starts? Do you think it's with the youth? Do you think it's when they go to prison at a young age? Like, where do you think rehabilitation starts, if that even exists?
Um, Rehabilitation starts with the adults. It ain't the kids. It ain't no 14-year-old kids, 15-year-old kids making rap songs talking about how cool it is to go to prison. You know what I mean? It ain't the 14-year-old kids coming like, hey, come out here in these streets and get this money. It ain't. It's the older guys.
So, what are you doing today to make sure that you don't reoffend in any way, shape, or form, even if it's just something petty?
I don't hang around with old friends that I used to, and if you don't got nothing positive in your life going on, I don't want to be around it. Like whether you're always negative energy, anything. Like I make sure I'd rather be at home. Ain't nothing wrong with. I don't even use the words bored, so I'm gonna say because there's always something productive you could be doing out here. I didn't even like saying that word in prison no more because I could be working out, reading an intellectual book, something out here with all the technology, games, everything they got. How can someone say they're bored? So you could just say, I don't have a problem living a simple life.
Right. So, what's one thing that you would like people to know about yourself or your situation that you don't necessarily talk about in your lives or publicly, anything like that?
It's a good question. Something I would want people to know about me. Um, you know, I don't really talk about how like I'm a changed man, and we all. Well, no one's perfect. I still get um, angry at times. I still get emotional, but it's learning to channel all that and learning to deal with yourself and not reacting on those emotions. So I'm not how I just want the world to see like who I am. I'm s- I'm still I'm still Victor, but I'm just more. I'm just a human being, man. I'm just an ex-con out here, you know, trying to live his life and start his life out here in the world after 18 years.
Somebody just asked, what was the food you missed most when you were locked up?
It won't be no prison food, but you said when I was locked up. Ah, shoot, it's in my knee. But It would be chicken wings. I love buffalo style chicken wings, and they stopped giving chicken wings in prison because people are using the bones for shanks.
That's crazy. So they would what file down the wings to where they were they were sharp and use them as a shank.
Yeah,
That's pretty creative, actually.
yeah. No drumsticks or none of that.
Damn, that's wild.
We used to have chicken in prison years ago, like 2011.
So, what was your mental health like 18 years ago as opposed to now? Like, do you think it's improved? Do you think it's got worse?
My mental health, it improved. It improved, but towards the end of my bid, it was getting it just been it went up and down. Being going to solitary, being in the hole, it just that messes you up too. You just get tired of seeing people pray, like you said, people preyed upon, and you don't even say nothing. You just get to thinking like evil thoughts, like man, if they better not bring that over here with me, this and that. So even whether it's a cell robbery or somebody just jumping people just because they can do it, you never know what somebody's thinking in prison.
Is that a fear that you had that, like I might be next, I need to stay on my toes?
No, biggest fear I ever had was catching more time in prison. You know, I knew that I was in prison. You gotta survive, and if somebody tried to bring it there, like I didn't want to unalive somebody in prison and end up doing life in prison. You know what I mean? Like if we get thrown, and like if I get in a fight and one of his people slam the door and it's just me and that dude in there, it's me or him. You fight like your life depends on it. It ain't no like, oh yeah, you beat like these kiddie fights you see out here in the world. Them some fights can get serious.
Right, right. Yeah, you don't want to get more time, but at the same time, you don't want to become a victim yourself.
Yeah, that was my biggest fear of me, what I would do to somebody again.
Right, and it's not like you can prove that they were the aggressor when there's no cameras or anything like that. So it's your word against the person that is no longer here. Um, so we've been on here a little over an hour now. Is there anything that you want to talk about that you never really do talk about, or that you just have on your mind that you want to get off of it?
Um, Not really.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this with me today. I'm hoping in the future we can do more because you're very very well spoken, and I feel like you're very knowledgeable about the system, and you actually seem like you do have genuine like remorse, and you're not going to go back to the ways you were, and I appreciate that about you, and I appreciate that you're using your platform for good rather than
I
glorifying
appreciate that.
violence in prison.
I appreciate that. When you just said that, you sound like my parole officer. He said that. He said that yesterday, for real. So you seem like you really changed.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's because obviously the recidivism rate is probably not that good these days. And there's probably a lot of people going back because, like you said, if there's no friends or family, whatever, you just gotta hold on to what you didn't
It's,
want to.
there's an 83% recidivism rate.
Yeah, that's crazy. That definitely needs to change. And rehabilitation is not a thing in prison, as you were saying the other day on your live. People said prison should be meant for punishment, not rehabilitation. But I think
Yeah.
that's totally wrong.
That's why in other countries, them things like they look like cells, but they got real small beds, windows. Ain't no bars on the windows. You know what I mean? And it's like when you get sentenced to do a crime, is that's your time. It's the punishment. So you're being in there. You can't even talk to a guard for 5 minutes without their higher up. Like, why are you talking to that inmate? I understand corruption goes on, but at the same time, if I went to a guard, be like, hey, what you think would be a good career to pursue? Why are you talking to that inmate? So that's not rehabilitation. They treat us like we're not going to be released back into society. When if that guard, I might see that guard on the streets and be like, man, thank you for that advice, man. I ended up pursuing that job that you told me about, and it helped me change my life and stay out of prison.
Right, that's good. Yeah, I know that the misconception about talking to guards, like, oh, he's a snitch or he's trying to get favors or whatever. Like, but there's people that are genuinely good people that want advice, that don't want to reoffend when they get out, and they don't want to end up, you know, dying in prison one day.
For sure.
All right, well, Like I said, I appreciate your time. I'll definitely stay in touch with you. And I appreciate you coming on today, and I wish you the best. I hope your life goes in the direction you want it to go, and yeah, just I hope good things come your way.
I appreciate it, man. You have a blessed day too. I appreciate you having me up on here, telling my truth. You keep doing your thing too.
All right, appreciate it. Take care, and we'll connect soon. Okay.
All right, stay blessed.
All right, later.
You know.